Hey, what's up everyone? Here are 3 reasons not to buy the Orbea Wild. Okay, the title's a little clickbaity, but there are plenty of reasons to buy the Orbea Wild out there everywhere. From winning Pink Bike of the Year to rave reviews from Lone Wolf and EMTB News. It has cutting edge Bosch motor technology. The mostly integrated battery works really well because if we don't need to take it off often, like myself, it adds a little bit of extra frame stiffness and lightens up the frame a bit. The alloy frames are very cleanly made, so they almost look like a carbon front triangle. So needless to say, I was really excited when I ordered the bike in late 2023 and it arrived in early 2024. Worked with the shop to customize a few things. I swapped over the fork to a RockShox Zeb. I was really familiar with it and just wanted to give it a shot on this bike. I also had a RockShox Super Deluxe coil to throw on. Unfortunately, it didn't fit, and that is a spoiler to one of the reasons why this bike may not be for you. And I ended up upgrading the brakes to Hs Dominion A4s with 220 rotors front and rear. I swapped the rear derailleur over to a SRAM GX Axis, so I'm running the Shramano setup right now. And I threw on some 1-Up E-bars as well as some Cush cores in the tires and some downhill casing tires as well. So while the bike feels, looks, and rides great, there are a few glaring annoyances that I have, which we're going to get into. A lot of these issues are pretty easy to find on EMTB forums, as well as like social media, Facebook groups and things like that for the Orbea Wild. But not everyone goes through those sites. So I have done the perusing and the research to bring them here to you on YouTube. So this video is for anyone that already has the bike and might need some advice on rear shock fitment or the Spinblock issues, or you're maybe shopping for this bike and not sure if it's the one for you or not. Don't get me wrong, the bike is fantastic, but we're gonna get into a few things that may be a deal breaker for you. Okay, so first we're gonna talk about the Spinblock. This is probably one of the most polarizing pieces on this bike. It is from the factory an integrated headset for cable routing, and while it looks cool and cleans up the cockpit, which I do like as a plus, it definitely has caused some expletives for me in setting things up and the way the frame is designed around this. While I understand the decision for a Spinblock was likely well thought out from Orbea, in practice, I feel like it kind of falls short. Firstly, the plastic piece on the stem breaks pretty easily, rendering the Spinblock useless. It's the path of least resistance and likely by design, but the replacement parts aren't cheap and they have to ship from Spain unless your LBS has them in stock, which can mean 1 to 3 weeks downtime if you can't find one locally. Why is this a problem? The minor issue is potentially putting unaccounted for tension on your cables like your brake cable, your dropper cable, your rear derailleur cable if you have one. The more concerning issue that I ran into is on the small and medium and sometimes large frames of the fork damper, the top of your fork, hitting the down tube when your bars spin. And like I said, the Spinblock will break easily for you. I'm just calling it now, and don't be sad. It's just gonna happen. You need to have extra ones on hand. It's designed around it hitting because you can see the rubber blocker that they have right there. So the Spinblock is relied upon to block that. However, the Spinblock breaks pretty easily, so then it kind of puts you in a little bit of a conundrum. So if you want to remove the Spinblock to use an aftermarket stem and the universal stem collector part from Orbea for the cables, like many do, you need to be comfortable with the fact your fork damper can and will contact your down tube in the event of a crash. The way around this is to utilize crown race spacers and a matching bearing. I'll throw some shout outs in the comments along with the part numbers that I went with for my bike. I installed a 6mm crown race spacer from Cane Creek with a matching Enduro bearing. And on my medium H10, I still have very slight contact with the Grip 2 damper on my Fox 38 Performance Elite. Like I said earlier, I had a Zeb on here, and the Charger 3 damper is significantly taller than the Grip 2 damper for Fox. So the way it came in contact with the down tube was much more profound and almost kind of scary, to be honest, on my size medium. I've heard that on the large, you can run the 3mm Cane Creek spacer and you'll be fine, you'll get clearance. So all in all, the Spinblock is controversial because it adds a little bit more complexity to the cockpit and servicing and moving things around. In addition, the frame is designed on relying on the Spinblock, which is not reliable, unfortunately. So you have to be okay with the fact that your fork dampers can and will probably contact your frame in the event of a crash. So just be aware of that. And if you want to run the aftermarket stuff, you just need to be aware. And this is something that could be a deal breaker for some people. Honestly, I knew going into it that it had this set up, but I wasn't quite sure how much it would affect me. I was like, oh, I'll just leave it. It's going to be fine. Well, I've broken multiple Spinblock pieces, and I now have no Spinblock enabled, and I'm running the aftermarket stem along with the universal collector, and I just live with it. All right, so number 2 is shock fitment in the rear. This is not something I was aware of when I ordered the frame, to be honest. I had a RockShox Super Deluxe from my other bike that was sitting around. I had upgraded that to a push shock, and so I had rear coil that would fit this bike ready to go on. And then as I was getting it built up at the shop, I looked online, and a lot of people were saying that it doesn't fit on full compression. There's going to be some contact with the frame, and immediately I was like, yeah, obviously let's not do that, right? So unfortunately, the rear shock fitment on the Orbea Wild is not very compatible with mini shocks. So the Fox Float X and X2 will fit fine. There are some Öhlins and EXT coils that will fit certain sizes. I think the smaller you go, the more chance of contact. So the smalls and mediums, you may need to look online on what's working on forums and on Facebook. I don't think that the push shocks will work right now that I'm aware of. I also know that the RockShox Super Deluxe from 2023 with the HBO and up will work with this. I believe 2022 and back will work. The Fox DHX2 coil should work just fine. So what I'm getting at here is if you plan on customizing your bike in any way, from the fork like we just talked about, as well as the rear shock, be aware that this frame and bike is really designed to work with like a Fox 38 and some sort of Fox rear shock. So just look into it. Don't go buy happy when you're picking it up and have all these suspension parts ready to throw on without knowing that there could be fitment issues on the front with the down tube, as well as in the rear with it contacting. So that said, it could be a deal breaker for some that want to go gung-ho with customizing suspension pieces because it just might not fit. All right, so number 3 is the alloy frames have a bit of a misalignment issue on the rear triangle. So disclaimer, this has not affected me directly. So I only have about 600 miles on my Wild because I also ride my analog bike a lot as well. But my Float X is looking and riding fine. My rear triangle has no signs of issues yet. So that's a positive. But there have been multiple reports on social media like Facebook and on some forums of the Float X or X2 shock showing abnormal wear on the stanchion, and this is due to the rear triangle being misaligned and causing additional wear on the side of the shock. Now I will say this, it seems like most people that have this issue, Orbea is taking care of them and letting them replace the rear triangle, maybe replace the frame. I don't want to quote it, but some people said there was an option to upgrade to a carbon frame for a cost, but the problem is when you get the new frame, maybe you ride wrapped your frame, or you got to pay if you're not savvy yourself, you got to pay someone to put it all back together for you. So that's not ideal, and you got to wait for however many weeks to be without your bike. So that's not fun. I will say that this doesn't seem to be a super widespread issue. It seems to be maybe the earlier years, and it's again the vocal minority. There's some people that have had this issue, and obviously I would be very angry if this happened to me, but I don't think it's happening for most people. Again, I'm a good case where I've ridden this only 600 miles, but pretty hard miles, and I have not had any problems with my rear triangle. So I got that going for me, which is nice. I should note that I have a 2024 model year, and the 2023 and 2024 will have a different rear triangle than the 2025 from what I can tell. I believe the 2025 allows for mullet compatibility and has a little bit of a change, so this might not be an issue with the newer models. And again, this is only the alloy frames, and it's a small percentage of them from what I can tell, so I wouldn't be too worried about it, but it's just something to look out for. If you pick up your Wild and within 100 miles you're seeing some stanchion issues, I would look into it. Well, there you have it. There's a few reasons to not buy the 2023-2024 model year Orbea Wild. The 2025 might have some improvements in these areas. It's yet to be seen. The Spinblock definitely isn't different. The rear shock compatibility may change a little bit. I'm not totally sure. It's yet to be seen. And the rear misaligned triangle on alloy frames is also yet to be seen on the new 2025. So we'll see how that goes. But I also want to confirm that I absolutely love this bike. The Bosch motor is just phenomenal. The ride capability of this bike is insane, and I have absolutely loved every minute on this bike. The only issues have come from what I talked about. The Spinblock can be a real pain in the ass, and you need to have some parts available. I hope this video helps anyone that's considering this bike or already has it and is looking into issues with the Spinblock or shock compatibility. I'm here for you. I did a lot of reading online, and a lot of people ask this question over and over and over again, so I wanted to put out a video that can provide some context. So let me know in the comments if you're having any issues with these things. I will share some part numbers in the comments on what worked for me for the spacer on the crown race, as well as the bearing that you can use for the headset. And I really just hope this helps someone either confirm their decision for the Wild or help someone that already has it, and let someone know that's shopping for a Wild that, you know, these issues may sway you another direction, and that's totally okay. There's so many great e-bikes out there right now that, you know, you can't go wrong. But I really do love the Orbea Wild, and I hope to hear from everyone in the comments. Let me know, like and subscribe, all that jazz. Catch you later.